What's up, family? Welcome to episode 22 of Men versus Ego. I have a very special guest today. Uh, First time for me, a fellow YouTuber, influencer, a spiritual teacher that I would say. Wow, I could keep going on and on. But without further ado, Miss Jillian.
Hello. Thank you, Bobby, so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be talking with you today. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jillian. I'm a YouTuber, just like Bobby said. I talk about reincarnation and spiritual topics and try to do it in a way that's really practical and grounded and down to earth so you can apply it to your life and have a little fun while we do it as well. Not be too out there in the clouds, but actually talk about life because life is pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to talk about relationships because talk about things that are hard.
The-
Relationships are at the top of the list.
yes, ma'am. And I know that you would agree that relationships are a must for everybody for their personal growth and everything. So thank you for so much for coming on, Miss Jillian, and I appreciate you. And let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Why relationships are the greatest teachers? I guess the first topic is why romantic relationships trigger us more than friendships.
Yeah. I was thinking about this from a few. I have two things to say about this. So, one, I like analogies, and then I'm going to get into the romantic piece. But why are relationships such great teachers? So, I thought about think about if you're doing a math problem. Now, what if you're just doing it in your head? If it's a really complicated math problem, that can be kind of hard to do and try to figure out. But if you write it down on a piece of paper, you actually bring it into the real world, it allows you to interact a little bit more deeply, right? Now, let's say we have a math problem that we actually see in the physical world. Let's say we're saying we have six apples and we're taking three away and we're left with three. It gives us a tangible experience of math. That for
Yeah.
me is what relationships are like, right? It's whatever our internal growth is that we need to be working on or we want to be working on. But sometimes if we're just doing it inside of ourselves, we can't quite get a grasp on it. So when we then have a person in our life that's able to play out that drama or that lesson with us, we're able to learn it on a much more concrete and real level, something more tangible. Now, why romantic relationships? Why are they so hard? Why are the things that really challenge us? I think it has a lot to do with identity, right? I think, perhaps because in most cultures, not all, but in most cultures, we have single partnerships, monogamous partnerships. And because we have one person to pick from, it ends up becoming more reflective of us as an individual, right? If you think your partner reflects on you a lot more than a friend might.
Mm.
So that then creates a stage and creates a more intensity when we're actually looking at our own identity because we've extended our identity to this other person.
Wow. There, you're speaking my language, Miss Jillian. How about where they said that twin flames are two souls, one soul, but split in
Mm,
two bodies, and they mirror our shadow self? And I like the analogy that
mm,
you gave
yes.
about writing out what you have internally. But at this time, you have another partner to help you, like you said the dramatics.
Yes.
It to me, it took me a while to understand the whole dynamic of they're just mirroring what I have to fix inside myself. And as soon as I figured that out,
Hmm.
Miss Jillian, I went on this spiritual rabbit hole and I went to learn about karmic relationships, twin flames, soulmates, and it just opened my horizon to where like it's sometimes it's not me, sometimes it's my significant other's traumas or
Hmm.
their projections of the past that they didn't heal. And I'm just, I don't want to say a scapegoat, but like you said, I'm that actor setting the drama for them to fix themselves in a way, to do the work,
Yeah.
right? That's, but I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head in explaining the whole thing. I love the analogy, Miss Jillian. Great analogy.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think too, I think you bring up a good point. Like, when do you know if this is like your own stuff that you need to work on, or is this the other person's? And I want to be careful about being too blamey, right? Because there's always a dance. We both have something to learn in the dynamic. But I think one of the things that can be an indicator is when you start acting a little differently and it doesn't make any sense to you why you're behaving this way. It's out of character for you. And yet, perhaps for that person, everybody acts that way towards them. For me, that's often a clue of like, oh, this person on like a soul level is asking people to show up that way so that they can work on that particular dynamic. So that can be a clue.
That's yes, and sometimes I've seen, couples, friends, acquaintances, they separate for a couple for maybe months, maybe years,
Mhm.
and then they come back, and they're brand new people. They've learned whatever lessons they had to learn with somebody else or somehow
Mhm.
through some kinda serendipitous way, they find each other again, but they're not the same they're upgraded almost into like a their
Yeah.
lessons have been learned. It just that the universe, I guess, separated them at the time, and they went their separate ways for a little bit, and they come back, and it's like, I understand
Mhm.
why XYZ happened, or, yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And also, like, we have free will too, right? Sometimes when we're in a relationship and we're meant to learn something specifically, and you know what? Sometimes we don't wanna learn it with this person. We don't like how it's playing out. We don't have to be stuck in a relationship. We can even if this was pre-planned before you were born, if you believe that, which I do, but you don't have to. But even if this is something that was set up ahead of time, if in the moment you're like, you know what, this is too hard for me, or I want to opt out of this lesson, I'm going to go and try this out with somebody else. Maybe it'll be easier with that person. I think that could be maybe what's happening in that situation. And then they heal, they learn, they grow, and then they're able to come back and work on new lessons because there's always something more to learn.
Oh, beautiful. And you said it earlier. Some people, when they see the mirror of themselves, they run away. They're like, "No, I don't want to feel that yet. I don't want.
Mm,
No, you're bringing too much. I don't want to see my shadow self. I don't want to see that yet."
yeah.
So they run. They become an avoidant. So they rather just cut off all communications, block you, or whatever the case may be, and then they monkey branch, right? Not all the time, but sometimes they monkey branch. Oh, let me learn, like you said earlier, Miss Jillian, they learned the lesson through somebody else. Maybe this person can teach me
Mm.
not by showing me the mirror to myself so I can fix whatever I need to fix, but in another way. And sometimes it takes cycles.
You know, and here's the thing too that I always try to keep in mind. Unfortunately, when we don't learn something the first time around, it comes back harder. And then it comes back harder. And then it comes back harder. So for me, when I start experiencing something in my life, I'm like, let me figure this out now because I don't want a more challenging version of this. Oprah, I love me some Oprah. She said it, I think I'm going to paraphrase her a little bit, but she's like, first the universe comes and taps you on the shoulder and then it kind of like shakes you and then it hits you with the brick wall. Or a friend of mine also says like a frying pan. Like we want to find out what we want to learn that lesson before it gets to the frying pan level.
This is a great conversation already, Miss Jillian. I can tell this is a hot topic right here. And I,
Yes.
I'm a big believer in karma. So, with that being said, if the mirror, right? If we hold a mirror to our significant other and they don't want to see themselves in that mirror and they run to somebody else, like you said, the universe has a funny way of, you didn't learn it here? Okay, let me teach you even harder over here. Oh, you didn't learn it over here either? And it follows you until you said you break that cycle. You learn. Sometimes you fall, sometimes you trip. But if you keep running from it, it's like you said, Miss Jillian, it becomes harder and harder and harder. So you're
Mhm,
not gonna outrun, I guess, your lessons. They're gonna come find you sooner or later.
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I love to, we're talking about shadow work as well,
Mhm.
right? Relationships and shadow work, and because it can be a lesson, right? But shadow work itself, what we run away from and why we don't wanna deal with it is, like, it's parts of ourselves that we haven't fully accepted and come to terms with yet, and we get stuck in that energy, and unfortunately, what happens when we are not claiming a part of ourselves, then we're not claiming the positive aspect of that as well, because I believe that everything has a positive and a negative side. So, for example, for me, when I was a kid, I used to talk too much. I talked all the time. I wouldn't shut up. And it was something I was deeply ashamed of. It became part of my shadow self, right? And so got in relationships with people who talked too much because I didn't accept that part of me. And so I shut that down. But the positive side of talking too much is that I'm a communicator, right? That's what I'm here. That's what I'm doing. I needed to have excess verbal energy because I need to talk a lot on camera. I just need to find a positive way to channel that. When you are not accepting yourself in the negative version of it, if you don't create space for that, you can't also accept the positive side as well. So I think that's why it's really great that we're talking about shadow work specifically when it comes to relationships because
Wow.
there's so much power that we're able to untap and so many of our gifts we're able to utilize once we're able to make space for the parts of ourselves that we don't really wanna look at.
Miss Jillian, when we first got on the call, I mentioned the tarot card Temperance. And if you know a little bit about Temperance, it shows you how to mix the shadow self with the light self and how
Mm,
to incorporate to better have a balance. Once you learn that balance, life, relationships, careers, it becomes so easy to navigate. But if you're too much in your shadow self or you're too much of a good person, people are gonna run all over you. And if you're too much of a shadow person, like, watch the scorch earth, right? Oh, you're gonna burn a lot of bridges, you might have this karma come after you afterwards, but it's all about temperance, right? I think you hit it on the head on that one, man. What about
yeah, balance. It's really beautiful. I hadn't
yes, man.
heard the temperance card described that way, and I'm gonna remember that.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
gonna take that with me.
Take it with you, ma'am.
Yeah, I think the putting it in my pocket, Bobby.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I think the universe or God, whatever your word is, really likes balance, really likes things to be in sort of homeostasis. So, even in our physical body, it's all about, right? We don't want to be too extreme one way or the other. We don't want to
Mhm.
exercise too much or not exercise at all. We want to be in balance.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's the same. And for me, that's also what karma is, right? It's not about punishment or reward. It's about getting things back in balance.
Mhm. I'm not even gonna even try to say something back, man. I mean, yeah, you took it away. What about growth versus comfort in relationships? I think you also mentioned earlier, man, sometimes people don't wanna learn that lesson, so they go somewhere else to
Mhm.
for them not to see themselves. Is that
Yeah.
paraphrasing what okay.
Growth is not very comfortable. You
Mm,
know? It would be great if it was,
mm,
but it just isn't. We tend to learn the hard way, unfortunately. It's I don't know, I like analogies like I told you at the beginning. Let's see if I can articulate this one. It's like if you're carving something, right?
mm,
And if you're not putting a lot of pressure on it, you're not really creating a lot of change to that object that you're carving. But the more pressure you put on it, the more impact and change and the deepness of it. That's sometimes how I like to think about it when it comes to growth. The more painful things are, the harder they are, the more deeply we are getting healed and the more deeply we're learning. It doesn't feel good while we're doing it. And I know it's something that a lot of people have a lot of resistance to that concept because we don't want to feel pain and we don't it's hard to find sometimes to look towards pain as having a positive aspect, but I think yeah, it's very tempting to be in comfort, but and I think it's important to have comfort sometimes. I think that we shouldn't be in growth all of the time, but again, it's balance. It's finding the balance between being in those 2 states.
yes, man. And sometimes I would compare it you go to the gym to get toned, build muscle.
Yes.
If you it's kinda like let's put it in spirituality, right? In those terms, if you know that there's a thing about you inside that is not so great, and you bring it into your relationship, and your partner calls you out on it, or your partner tells you, "Hey, this is like a toxic trait or something," and you get triggered, you get like, "Oh my gosh, no." you're crazy,
Mhm.
you're insecure, your gaslighting goes up the roof, man. And unfortunately, that was a good partner that you had, but then you just like, you know what? No, y- they were toxic. They always blame me, X, Y, Z. You name whatever excuse you have, and then you go on to another relationship down the road, and the same thing happens. So until we go to the spiritual fitness center and actually work on ourselves and look at ourselves
Right.
and grow, and like you said, we don't have to do it all the time, man. Maybe people don't go to the gym all the time, maybe 3, 4 times a week, and they give them that body time to recover. But I guess in the spiritual sense, it could take months, years. Depends on how bad you want your inner growth instead of like body growth.
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
spiritual six-pack.
Yes, man.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think relationships, it's so interesting that they can be such, a challenge, but a good healthy relationship is one where you're able to challenge each other, but you're able to still hear and respect each other. I think,
Mm,
I know offline we've talked about Eckhart Tolle, who I love, I adore. And so he will often talk about kind of that pain body and that ego state that can get triggered in a relationship. And you just turn into a different person. Like it's happened to me, right? Where afterwards you're like, who was that? That isn't how I want to show up. That's not who I wanna be in the relationship. But it gives you some awareness about where you have some growth opportunity.
yeah.
And yeah, and it can be hard if you're the person in the relationship and the other person is the one whose pain body is getting triggered and is attacking you and coming at you. What Eckhart will talk about as far as how to react when you're in that situation, if you're able to, it's hard. It's easy to say when you're in that dynamic to take the high road. It's hard to do in practice. We're human beings. We're not perfect. But the more you can focus in on who they are, who they truly are, their true core part, that part that you love, if you're able to focus on that and not see this wild, wacky behavior as who they are as a person, and just realize that that's just a whole bunch of wiring that they picked up from their childhood or from past lives, if you believe in that, which I do, but that this is a tangle that isn't them at all. And so when you're able to actually kind of focus in on hearing the person underneath that and hearing whatever the pain is, that's when you can have these relationships that are very fruitful and healthy and move you both forward together.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Man, I love Eckhart Tolle. I'm glad you brought him up. I think it was chapter 9, Enlightened Relationships from the Power of Now. The pain body, sometimes your partner is unconscious. I think he mentions unconscious, and then the pain body takes over. He said, be careful because your pain body can take over too, even though you're the one that's conscious.
Absolutely.
And now you're both unconscious. I compare it to if you get I use this comparison a lot, man. Piece of moldy bread, right? And you're a fresh bread. You put the moldy bread and a brand new fresh bread together. Sooner or later, that mold on that moldy bread is going to transfer over to the new fresh bread sooner or later. And that's what I see when he was talking in that metaphor of unconscious. You said something about
Yeah.
being disrespectful, maybe switching up like a 180. Like, who is this person? Is this your shadow self? This is nasty. Oh my gosh. What happened to the
Mhm.
Miss Bo Peep from up in the village that we used to be sweetheart? No,
You got
this is
eaten out by the big bad wolf.
yeah, got big bad great another great analogy, man. Big bad wolf came and took over. So I completely agree with you,
Yes,
Miss Jillian. If it's all right with you, man, let's keep it going to the next one, which is I think we
let's
hit
do
on
it.
this. What is shadow work without the spirituality aspect, without the woo aspect of it, in your words?
Yes, in my words. So shadow work is a part of yourself or way of being that you don't fully accept. Right?
Mm,
So this could be a part of you that you haven't accepted. Like, for example, as I was talking about earlier, being somebody who talks too much.
yeah.
See the if I only see the negative of that and that becomes a shadow side of myself and I haven't integrated that part of myself, that's a communicator. right? Another way it can show up, per my understanding, is the things that you are not allowing yourself to be. So it or have a lot of judgments about yourself. So it could be maybe not that you are necessarily this way. So, for example, let's say you have a lot of issues with anger, with people who get angry, that other people trigger you when they get angry and you don't like it. And you're shutting that off and you're shutting that down. That also is a part of you, a shadow part of you. Not that you are an angry person, but that you haven't accepted or allowed yourself the gift of anger, right? Because anger can be protective. It can be very powerful when it's used in a constructive way. It takes care of you, right? But like anything, if it's out of balance, it's destructive. So for me, yeah, I like to sum up shadow work kind of in those two different dynamics.
Okay, man. Yeah. Let me add to your pearls of wisdom here.
Please, please
I'm a big
do.
follower of Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he had an interview with a news broadcaster, and he said, "Why should men or people in general be capable and dangerous?" And he summed it up because there's no virtue in being just not dangerous. People are going to walk all over you. So you mentioned anger could be
Mm,
used for protective purposes. If I know that if I'm always kind all the time, giving all the time, people are gonna expect things and they're just gonna take, 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 take. I need to put that boundary. And as soon as I put that boundary, they're not gonna like it. They're gonna be like, "Why are you acting different? Why you say get away with this? Why can't I get?" It's because you finally took a stand, and it's okay to be angry sometimes. You gotta let them know. Be uh, basically capable and competent and dangerous. So I like his analogy on that too. You get no virtue from being so kind because I think you know this
mhm.
better than me. There are some bad people in this world, man, and they will take advantage of you if you let them.
Yes, and I think that's I would say I am careful to say that we don't wanna be, like, kind and giving,
Mhm.
right? And I know there might be a gender dynamic in that as well, because I know that there's a lot of expectations for women to behave that way, and if we don't behave that way, then that's dangerous for us. But I think the key part is respect, is self-respect, right? That's what a boundary really does. It's like you can be kind and loving, but still respect yourself by not overgiving, not letting people take advantage of
Yep.
you, not letting people take control of you, right? It's that
Mhm.
respect piece that that so many of us are trying to learn, and that is a big one that plays out in relationships.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yep. Yep. You'll be surprised, man, if respect was mutual, a lot of the conversations, the arguments, the disagreements would cease to exist. But because the
Mhm.
ego, and this is another one, ego versus the shadow. The ego feels like I want to be right all the time. There's no way I can be wrong. I can't be wrong. Well, you let the ego die, and I think the dark night of the soul for those who are spiritually inclined, right? The ego death. It's like I don't have to be right all the time. And sometimes silence when people disrespect you, I'm sure you agree with me on this one, Miss Jillian. If not, I want to hear your side. But silence is the best
Right.
answer to disrespect.
Yeah, I think it's what I really read in that idea of silence is that, like, I'm not gonna engage in that dynamic. Like, I'm not participating in you're bringing a dysfunctional dynamic, I'm not going to engage in that, I'm gonna pull myself out of that. And going to one of the things that you talked about earlier is, like, when you start putting up those boundaries and people don't like it, unfortunately, you see that your relationships will change. The dynamic between the relationship will change, and sometimes the relationships will fall apart because they have this dance they wanna dance, and if you're not willing to dance that dysfunctional dance with them, they need to find a new partner. Right? Sometimes you can get them to come if we're gonna keep on with the dance analogy, sometimes you can get them to start dancing your dance, but that takes somebody that's got a lot of, awareness and openness, I think, which can be hard to find.
Yeah.
So, sometimes that's the thing about relationships is you just gotta be okay with letting them go sometimes.
You have to, man. I think it's sometimes we as humans, we want to clench things and not change and get and be used to that dysfunction, not knowing that if we let them go, they could come back better or we can possibly find better for us, more toe for toe in the type of relationship that we want. You know, it's almost like a selfish thing to do if we hold on to them. If you really love something, it's like
Mm.
that old cliche analogy. If you love something, you let it go. No, literally let it go. I know it's harder than it's. I think you said it's
Yeah.
easier said than done, and I 100% agree. Um, and to add a little bit more, sometimes I feel like a hypocrite, Miss Jillian, on the books that I've read, The Power of Now, The 48 Laws of Power, The Alchemist, because I don't incorporate all the time the lessons that those books taught me. And I'm like, what am I doing? And it's just, it's just me, man.
It takes time.
Yeah.
I know, it's the same. It's easy for us to be really hard on ourselves, right? And that's also why it's important to acceptance, right, is a dynamic, the
Mm.
shadow dynamic that comes out, right? Like, if you're not accepting that you're growing at your own pace, you might find yourself in a relationship where you're getting frustrated with the other person's lack of growth because you haven't accepted that, like, you're at where you're at. Growing takes time and it's on its own pace. And I know because I do the same thing. It's like I can be like, well, here I am I'm on YouTube and I'm talking about all these spiritual things, but I've got my own personal dramas going on and I'm doing my best to manage them, but I'm not always perfect. But we wouldn't be here on earth in human form if we were perfect. We came here to learn. It's like in school, it's not like you're going to have somebody who's a PhD person in middle school. We're learning what we're learning and we're learning it at the pace we are, and it's all good.
And that's okay, right, man?
And it's great.
Okay.
It's great.
Okay.
More than okay. It's great because it's where you're at, and where you're at is exactly where you need to be.
And then sometimes if we feel like our partners are down here and we're up here, like we're like excelling, call it
Mm.
ascending, it's okay for us
Mm.
to, is it okay for, well, in your opinion, ma'am, is it okay to separate and then maybe come back later
Absolutely.
to meet us?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that you always have a choice when you see that there's a dynamic difference between the 2 of you. If you're talking specifically about personal growth, spiritual growth, personal awareness, some people like to be in relationships to be sort of the rescuer. That is its own lesson to be worked through that we can't rescue people because we're all powerful, right? You rescuing somebody is undermining their power to rescue themselves. But, sometimes it's useful to play that out in a relationship in order to learn it effectively, in order to learn it deeply. So you could choose to stay in a relationship to be a rescuer or a teacher. Um, but there also you don't need to at all. If you aren't feeling like you're getting nourished and lit up by that relationship, if it's only taking from you, sometimes that is the lesson is to be able to say, I need to walk away from this relationship because I need to love myself and respect myself enough to know what I want to have in my life.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Woof. Wow. I'm lost for words, Miss Jillian. This is
Well, I've
great.
got plenty for both of us, Bobby. I'll give you some of mine.
Yeah, keep coming, ma'am. What about why logic disappears during arguments, ma'am? What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, I just think about Eckhart Tolle and the pain body. It's that part of you, that human I think, this is my belief, I think the ego and the pain body is part of the physical human body experience. It's not part of our soul necessarily. I could be wrong. I haven't done any, like, research on all of that. That's just my sense. I think it served us evolutionary wise, right? So I think that, like, this primal part of us gets triggered because we feel threatened. If we
Mm,
feel threatened that, like, if we're not loved, if we're not accepted, we're gonna be kicked out of the tribe, and then we're gonna starve to death or whatever. It becomes this threat to our survival on a particular level, and so we turn into kind of the animal
yeah.
part of ourselves.
I would say there's a great story. I'm gonna paraphrase it, man, but it's about a king or a tribesman or a chief who throws his sons to the wolves, or his son through to the wolves, and it took him some time, but he comes back leading the pack of wolves when they discarded him. So sometimes I would say when the universe or the divine or brings you somebody to help you grow, be careful how you treat that person because that person might show you things that are uncomfortable to you. Like we were talking earlier, man, like the mirror. And you
Mhm.
have no idea the blessing that you just let fall off the edge of the bridge because you didn't want to grow. And now you're stuck in this loop with so and so and then you go into a monkey branch with so and then you wonder why you can't find that one partner because maybe you did find them, but you're like, "Nope, I don't wanna look at myself right now. I wanna do me. I wanna go out there and explore," and that's fine too, but that person, that source, whatever energy brought you, might not come back.
It's true. That might be the one opportunity for that. I mean, I think I've had some instances in my life that I think back on and know who I was at the time and why I made those choices that I did and come to regret it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
And I do remember a couple of dates I went on with a guy who ended up rejecting me, which was fine. And then, yeah, years later, he came back and said I was the best date he'd ever been on or whatever. I'm like, "Well, sorry, like, that opportunity was back in the past."
yeah.
So, yeah, it is important to try to be as open as you can to see what's available to you
Yes,
in the
ma'am,
time that it happens.
and I know that you're a big, believer in reincarnation, and me too, man. Guilty as charged. Sometimes the lessons that we don't learn in this lifetime, we are doomed to repeat them the next lifetime in a new body, in a new
Yes,
life, in a new consciousness. Do you agree?
I do agree. And
Okay.
if we really ignore them this time, sometimes they get harder in the next one.
You mentioned that earlier, and I completely agree. That's why I'm very careful, Miss Jillian, on who, if any person, you, stranger in the street, I always treat them with the same respect, same dignity, because you never know that person who, like, I know, Adam Sandler, he doesn't always show off his prestige. Sometimes he wears like gym clothes, and they like, they tell him like, "Hey, why are you wearing that, man?" He's so down to earth. Well, he shows that he's down to earth. He doesn't need to wear like Louis Vuitton or Prada. I'm like, you never know who you're gonna meet and who's gonna change your life for the better. So treat them with respect,
Mhm.
treat them with dignity, and just know that sometimes you don't you don't know if that person is gonna open a gateway to you to something better, I guess. That's it,
Yeah,
man.
no, absolutely. It makes me think of the old I think even Greek stories, right? About, finding a beggar, right, on the side of the road, but you treat them well and it turns out that they were a god in disguise or whatnot, and they take care of you or an angel in disguise, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't cost you anything to treat people with kindness and dignity and respect because you don't know. We don't know what the life stories are. You don't know what lessons people are learning either, depending on whatever their situation is. So
Yeah.
yeah, if people come into your life, there might be a very good reason for that. Even if sometimes it's a challenging reason, it could be something that really helps propel you forward a lot more.
Facts. Facts, man. And you mentioned Eckhart Tolle and the beggar on the side of the road. Do you remember when it starts off if a beggar was inside of the road and he was sitting on a chest and a
Mhm.
gentleman came by and he's like, spare some change. And he's like, have you looked inside your chest? He's like, what, this whole thing? And then he opens up the chest and it happens to be full of money. I think it was an analogy to look inside ourselves and figure ourselves
Mhm.
out before we are ready to take that big step in that forever relationship. Because if we don't fix our traumas, man, if we don't fix ourselves, and if it's okay that we look in the mirror and we see, like, for lack of better words, our demons, lust, greed, envy, then we need to fix ourselves in order to protect our future partners because it's incumbent upon ourselves to treat them with love and not bring that baggage, for lack of better words, to them. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right? That person that is our if we do in this lifetime have somebody that's kind of our ultimate partner, we want to be the healthiest, best version that we can be for them.
Yeah.
Right? So taking those other relationships as opportunity to grow and hone ourselves, right? The challenge shows up, how can we make ourselves better because
Mhm.
of the situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ultimately, for this relationship and ultimately for yourself as well, so that
Yeah.
you can look back and you can say, this is who I wanna be in the world.
Yes, ma'am. And I follow Chris Dodgery on YouTube, and he speaks about energy and how if you focus on yourself, if you heal yourself, you'll be surprised. Like you'll start meeting people who open doors or are great friendships or have the same. I guess your vibe attracts your tribe, Miss Jillian. And
Hmm?
and
I like that. I haven't heard that before, but it makes sense.
yeah, yeah, and there's a reason why I was so set on your YouTube channel, and especially on the karmic relationships video that you let out. I was like, wow, like that really resonated with me. And I'm like, you know what? Let me take this chance. Let me take this gamble, because honestly, man, when you're a YouTuber or a social media influencer, you hardly have time to answer fans or let alone make a video with a complete stranger who just happened to email you. So again, thank you for this opportunity, Miss Jillian. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity as well, Bobby. I really appreciate it quite a bit.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. The fear of abandonment in a relationship, man.
Mm.
What's your take on that one?
Yeah, again, when we look at the challenges in the relationship, if we're really truly doing the shadow work,
Hmm.
it's whatever it is that we're wanting from another person is what we're really needing or wanting to give to ourselves. So if it's abandonment, perhaps the situation is that you're abandoning yourself. If this is a
Okay.
situation that you've got a fear of abandonment, it's like, are you, and of course, there's childhood traumas that set you up for this, of course. But ultimately, the opportunity is to be able to say, how can I be there for myself? Right? How can I take care of myself? How can I show myself that I am loved and that am worthy and put my boundaries up and respect myself?
And
That's
I
my
don't
picture, at least.
I'm with you, ma'am. I'm on your side of the boat on this one. And
Okay.
I understand other people's side too, where like they feel like when you put the boundaries up, you're abandoning them. It's not that you're
Mhm.
abandoning them, it's the fact that you're taking all this thing you're there's an uneven balance of give, 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 and the other person just take, 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 take. Sooner or later, that
Mhm.
person's gonna get exhausted, like, "I need to put my wall up. I need to put this energetic field of I had to say no. I can't follow you down this road that you're going to because it's not for me. It's not,
Yeah.
uh, it's not for my higher self, and I can't." And they feel like you're abandoning them. It's not that you're abandoning them, it's the fact that you love them so much that you're allowing them to go through that, but you're not gonna go through that. I'm sorry. You like it's back to that self-love.
Yeah, and I think also power, right? Because I think what happens is that they're giving their power to you, and, they need to own their own power. I mean, I had a ayahuasca experience in Peru,
Ooh,
but it was deeply instructional. Yes, it was deeply instructional, and so one of the pieces was there was this man who was crying for help and is like, "How can I help you? How can I help you?" And kind of the message I got was that, like, if you help him, he's not going to be able to see that he can help himself. So it's that thing in this dynamic, this abandonment, if you were to constantly rescue another person, right, they will never learn that they can rescue themselves. They have that power that they need to be giving themselves and not putting you above them.
be careful. I would say be careful with that as well too, ma'am. Devil permission to play devil's advocate.
Please do.
When that happens, they become like this independent, like, I don't need nobody else. I can do it by myself. I've been alone this time. I can do
Mhm.
it. It's not that okay, it's cool that you can do it by yourself, but don't view the world as they're after to get you. Not everybody's have full intent towards you. Some people come to you for to help you. They seen you doing it all by yourself and they just want to add to your pot of gold, I guess. But there is some people out there who is like, "Oh, you're doing it by yourself. I can just take the train, hop on the bandwagon with you, and you can take me places without me having to do the work." I guess.
I think the hardest thing about being in a relationship is when you see the areas of growth that a person needs to go through or the being that they could be or how they could show up differently. And unfortunately, we can't we can't change other people, right? We can only hold for them what we want for them and say, I'm not going to engage in your dysfunctional dynamic. Like I'm not going to play that game. But they may decide that they want to play out that dysfunctional dynamic or that dysfunctional role. And the hard part just becomes to the place where you say, like, I'm going to accept that you're going, that's the path you're choosing, that you're choosing to play out this unhealthy dynamic because there's something that you're gonna get out of it. So I'm gonna honor and respect that you are doing this. I'm gonna honor and respect that you're playing out this particular role, which I don't think is good or healthy, but some part of you needs to go through this. So I'm just gonna stand and be a witness. I'm not gonna engage in it because that's not who I wanna be, but I'm going to respect you enough to let you do it.
And
It's hard.
it's
It's hard
hard.
to do.
It's so hard, Miss Jillian. It's like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh. And,
Very hard.
I would compare it to them getting the surgery that they need, and you knowing they're going under the knife, and you're hoping that, "Hey, hopefully nothing happens." But, this doctor, I would compare the doctor to, like, uh, divine source, God, if you will. He's
Mhm.
working on him. Let the doctor work on him, right? But it's your job
Yes.
to be in the waiting room if you want to, or you can be maybe at a church or at your spiritual sanctuary or somewhere else where you're just like, oh, I can't see. I understand where you're trying to tell me, man. And
Mhm.
wow.
And to steal a little bit from Eckhart Tolle too, or to play off of a little bit more, I think the if we're really gonna be the best version of ourselves, which again, really hard to do. I certainly am not an expert at this. But if we're looking at where we can go, it's when you're engaging with that person is to be paying attention to when they're doing things right, because as you're putting your attention on that, your energy on those parts of them that are healthy, that will help grow that aspect of themselves. You can think about that on an energetic level, but you can also see that like on a social research level when they have a group of kids and they tell the kids that they're all, A students, even though they're not, the fact that they're perceived that way, they start showing up that way, right? So I think that that's an opportunity if we're seeing somebody who's behaving dysfunctionally in the relationship with us, that's how I would want to behave at least. That's who I would want to be in the relationship.
Uh, Yeah, me too. Me too, Miss Jillian. There's a book called The Courage to Be Disliked. And in that book, it speaks about something similar how you just said if everybody's an A student, it's okay to get a pat on the back and to basically bring a spotlight on the good things that they do. And it shows that, hey, you're paying attention, you care, you're not focusing on the negativity. Because it's you said earlier, it's so hard to be perfect in this world because our human side comes out and we're flawed by nat by nature. We're flawed. And I think that's a beautiful analogy. But that book showed me a little bit what you're talking about. And it's funny because it's almost like The Alchemist, I would say, because there's a philosopher that's talking to a student in that book and they're exchanging ideas and philosophies. And the student's like trying to one up the philosopher, but he's having a hard time understanding him. So he's like, no, you're wrong. You're
Mhm.
crazy. And sooner or later, the kid's like, oh, he gets like enlightened. He's like, "I understand now what you're trying to tell me, philosopher," or whatever. It's a great book.
Absolutely. Classic cornerstone spiritual book.
Is there any book from what we talked about, Miss Jillian, that you would recommend to our audience that you would be like, "Yeah, this book probably changed your life."
Yes. Yeah, I know it isn't specifically about relationships per se,
Mhm,
but I think it opens up the framework, right, on reincarnation and the roles that we play for each other and what our challenges and our lessons in our lives are, right? Because
mhm,
if relationships are a way for us to learn these lessons, Like, let's take a look at how this whole structure kind of works. So, this was my gateway drug of a book that I found when I was a teenager, and it's called Many Lives, Many Masters by Ryan Weiss. The title rubbed me the wrong way a little bit, I think, when I first heard about it, but once you read it, you get it. It's a very easy read, and the storyline is essentially it's a true story. It's about a psychiatrist who's not spiritual, and he ends up hypnotically regressing his student who has a lot of anxieties, not student, his client, who has a lot of anxieties, and she starts talking about past lives. She doesn't believe in past lives. He doesn't believe in past lives. So the book is him trying to kind of understand that, but then watches her heal and transform through this recalling of past lives. So I think it's a great book if you're interested in kind of understanding or starting to get a taste for like reincarnation from a critical science perspective. I always recommend it to folks.
And I know you recommended it to me personally, and it's in
Yeah.
my Audible account. So I'm just waiting for that one free month of book, and I'm gonna download it as soon as I get it, ma'am. So I'll
Let me know what you think of it, Bobby, please.
yes, ma'am, I will.
Great.
The book that I like to recommend is Wherever You Go, There You Are by John
Mm,
Kabat-Zinn. I
mhm.
would compare it to The Power of Now somewhat, but not
Wow.
really, Edgar Tolle style, more like, I guess John Kabat-Zinn style. But I liked it in one of the analogies that he uses, but it's been used throughout the ages. He said, "If you see the Buddha, kill him." In other words, when you find yourself
Okay.
enlightened, you don't stop when you're
Mhm.
enlightened. You could keep going. There's no stopping in enlightenment. There's always growth, right? And I think this is
Absolutely.
one of the topics that we talked about today, Miss Jillian. It was relationships and personal growth. And I know couples that are past their 25th year anniversary. Some even reach 50 years anniversary of being married. And people always ask them, like, what's the secret? Right? Oh, don't make her mad. Listen to her, right? But you 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 know there's a special bond between the partners there, and it's a beautiful thing, man, and probably a lot of growth too.
It really absolutely. I mean,
Mhm.
you're not going to be the same person at the beginning of the relationship that you are at the end,
Oh,
if you're doing it right, at least.
oof. Dang, that's awesome, man. But any words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom that you wanna give to the audience, man, before we say our
Mm.
goodbyes?
Yeah, I guess, just to kind of put the cherry on the top of the whole relationships and shadow work topic, if there's something that's driving you crazy about another person, it the opportunity is not to look at how you can blame them or change them or fix them. The opportunity is to look at what is it that you have about that particular challenge that you need to grow because they are triggering your awareness and understanding. That would be the cherry.
Wow. Well, no, thank you so much, Ms. Jillian, again for giving me the time and the place. And I'm so happy I reached out to you. You are definitely one of
Same.
I consider one of my mentors in the YouTube world, right? And I'm a big fan. And
Thank
when
you.
this is all said and done, I hope that in the future hits the ball, keep going, keep going, keep going. If you ever need a special guest invitee, ma'am, I'm more than willing to be that special guest on your side of the spectrum, man.
I appreciate that. I haven't had guests yet, but it is on my list and on my radar, and I will definitely keep you in mind, Bobby. I really appreciate it. I'm honored that you invited me. I've had a wonderful conversation, and I'm so grateful for the work that you are doing in the world.
Yes, ma'am. Likewise, ma'am. Yeah. Don't be a stranger. You got my email, ma'am, and anytime don't hesitate to reach out. We'll see you then.
Sounds good.